Good morning, radio stations. Please stand by. The press briefing will start in approximately 2 minutes. Please stand by. Radio stations, the press briefing will start in 1 minute. In 30 seconds. Ten, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me say good morning to the minister here present, the minister responsible for Commerce, Enterprise and Small Business Development, Honorable Rosalind Paul, Permanent Secretary in that ministry, Esther Thomas, and the Executive Director within that ministry also, Mr. Alexander Stevenson. Members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, following the proceedings via all mediums, thank you very much for joining us. And let me say a happy new year, since this is the first time I am at this podium for 2018. We are always here within the office of the Prime Minister, grateful for the opportunity to bring you information post-Hurricane Maria. This morning, the information will be focused within the Ministry of Commerce, Enterprise and Small Business Development. You may already know this, but let me repeat. The devastation of Hurricane Maria did not only affect physical structures. Businesses were affected as well. And, ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Commerce, Enterprise and Small Business Development is going to formally launch a micro and small enterprise emergency grant this morning, and that will assist businesses who have been affected by Hurricane Maria. Several people will speak this morning. The first is the minister responsible. So let me call to the podium Minister Rosalind Paul, the Honourable. She's also the Member of Parliament for the Paybush constituency. Honourable Paul.
Good morning to Mrs. Aaron, and thanks for welcoming us. Let me recognize the Permanent Secretary in my ministry, Mrs. Esther Thomas, the Executive Director, Mr. Stevenson, Alexander Stevenson, and as I said, all of you from the media, a pleasant good morning to you. And to the listening public as well, a pleasant morning to you. And it's a blessed morning, I must say. And most of the MSME, small business, micro business owners in Dominica will be happy to note that the long-awaited grant support is about to commence. As you would know, very early, the Prime Minister of Dominica made the pronouncement that there will be grant support for enterprises in Dominica, especially micro and small businesses. And there has been support already for private sector businesses, the larger companies. Through the aid bank, you would have known that we had an agreement signed, an amendment to the facilities at the aid bank so that private sector or the larger companies that have been affected can have access to the necessary resources. And so today we are here to launch a second part of support to the private sector, and particularly, as I said, micro and small businesses. The reality is that small businesses in Dominica have been greatly affected. And every day we get the requests, the inquiries as to what kind of support or when are they going to get, when are small businesses going to get the needed support so that they can recover from the losses, loss of livelihoods, even loss of jobs, and loss of provision of services. So it affects not only the small business owners, but the people who would require the services from these small businesses. And just this morning, one small business person told me, when are we getting this grant support? Because I am now unemployed, and now the two young people who were working with me are no longer employed as well. And the service that I was providing to the Portsmouth Secondary School students, the small canteen, is no longer there. So it is very important that we get on stream, and we are happy to present that today. We have been working behind the scenes, working alongside the World Bank team. As you know, the resources are being provided or will be provided by the World Bank, and it's a partnership program with the Ministry of Commerce. And so we had to put all of the systems, the processes, the protocols, the requirements in place, and that you will hear of very shortly from the Permanent Secretary and Mr. Alexander, the Executive Director. But over the next 2 weeks, from today until the 24th, we will be inviting people to apply. You must have suffered loss from area for you to apply. And you have until, as I said, the 24th to make sure that you apply. We will be reaching out to all communities via the village councils so that people can have access to the application forms. We will also be launching our public relations, public awareness to ensure that people are well informed and that everybody that has been affected, everybody who has a small business that has been affected and meets the requirement can have access to the grant, can have access to the application form. So it's not going to just be in Roseau, but we're going to make sure that we reach out to all the communities around Dominica, the rural communities and around Roseau. The forms will also be available at the ministry as well. So all of those who are within my voice begin to spread the word that the small business grants application process is right now until the 24th. The targeted subsectors are within retail, trade and services, food and beverages, manufacturing and agro-processing, and construction. And the target is 1,500 small and micro businesses around Dominica. So I hope that the media will be assisting us in spreading the word, and that you will be hearing shortly more information as to what the requirements are and what some of the processes will be. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Paul. And today, I can safely say, is a very great day for businesses in Dominica. To explain more of the nitty-gritty of criteria and the like for qualification for this emergency grant, let me call to the podium the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Commerce, Enterprise and Small Business Development, Mrs. Esther Thomas.
Good morning, Honorable Minister, Executive Director, Press Secretary, the media present, to all listening via the radio, Facebook, and television. Splendid Happy New Year to everyone. Indeed, for us, the Ministry of Commerce, it's a pleasure to be here today to bring some hope for the hope to our micro and small businesses. And as the Permanent Secretary, I'm here just to provide details to some of the information that the Honorable Minister has presented. As the Minister indicated, that we are targeting 1,500 micro and small businesses within 4 specific sectors. And as she said, retail, trade and services, we are targeting 700 people. And for retail, trade and services, we are looking at art and craft producers, landscapers, retail shops, barbers, hairdressers, manicure and pedicure practitioners, vendors involved in retail trade. For food and beverage, we are targeting 350, and we are looking at persons in restaurants and bakers. For manufacturing and agro-processors, we are targeting 300, and we are looking at chainsaw and producers of lumber, charcoal producers, honey producers, furniture makers, and other light manufacturing and agro-processing. For construction, we are looking at persons involved in construction, bricks and mortar, mechanics, electricians, and plumbers. And as was indicated, it is very important for us to recognize that it is a micro and small enterprise emergency grant. And we call it emergency grant because we are encouraging our micro and small businesses as they recover from Maria, that they begin to prioritize what they must do first, so that they can begin a step-by-step process of reestablishing their business. And so the sum may seem smaller, and we recognize after we've done the analysis with ourselves and the World Bank practitioners, we recognize that everyone will be getting the same amount, and that would be $5,376. One may say this is smaller, but I think if a micro and small business in the areas that we have highlighted prioritize what they need to do first, I think it's a beginning to bring them towards moving forward. And as I always say, we in the Ministry of Commerce, or myself and my staff, we are ready and willing to guide the process. And today the launching is particularly the beginning of our public awareness, and it's also to highlight the application process. And as the minister said, the forms are available at the Ministry of Commerce. We'll be going out to put them in the village councils. The staff will explain to all the clerks how the forms must be filled out so that they can give guidance to the people filling them out. And it must be clearly understood that you must meet the requirements before you can fill the application. And the requirements are quite clear, and we have made many copies which we will circulate, and we have given copies to the press who are here. And one of the requirements is that your business must have suffered loss or has been affected by Hurricane Maria. And how we verify that, we have been going around the country soliciting micro and small businesses to do an assessment of their damage. And we have these forms available in the ministry, so it will be an evidence-based document that will reaffirm to us that once you have filled out this form and you're saying, yes, you have suffered damage from Hurricane Maria, we can go into our database and find you. And that form will, if you're not in that database of persons who have registered with us to say that they were damaged, then it means that one of the requirements is not fulfilled, because you need to fill out this survey form that clearly articulates that you have suffered loss or damage from Hurricane Maria. Of course, we welcome, if many people might say, oh, they don't remember, but I'm sure in the age of technology, many people took out photographs. So if they can produce evidence of photographs of the damage sustained, that is also evidence that we will utilize to support the fact that they were damaged through hurricane. We also want to say that the other requirement that is very, very important is that businesses must be registered with the Company and Intellectual Property Office. The government has a special office that is dedicated to ensuring that persons who have business register with the state. And as we say to the micro and small business, it only takes $90 to register the business. And it also helps us too. When they are registered business, we will have a clear database of all our micro and small businesses. So the requirements that are being asked of our micro and small business is nothing tenuous. It's also facilitating them and us, because we will be able to identify where they are as quickly as possible in our database when we have the information. And they too will begin to recognize how serious they need to take their business. Because if you register business with the state and you say you have a small business, you're certainly not going to conduct business anyhow. It will change your mindset to doing things, because the question they will ask you at the Company and Intellectual Office will make you recognize, boy, I really needed to do that, or I need to do something differently. And this is what we want to encourage our micro and small businesses, and we will avail ourselves to encourage them to do those necessary things so that they can comply with the requirements. We also want to say that they must employ between 1 to 20 persons. We know that many micro businesses only employ themselves. And that is another thing sometimes even our micro businesses don't understand, that when they are in business, they have employed themselves. And therefore, they must consider themselves an employee of their business. Most times people go into small businesses and they're just doing it for survival, not realizing they must separate their personal expenditure from their business expenditure. And how they address their personal expenditure through the business is that they pay themselves and consider themselves an employee. So we are saying you must employ between 1 to 20. So that should not throw you off, because you have to consider yourself an employee of the micro and small business. So if it's you alone in the business, you are one employee. While you are the owner, you are an employee. The business must have been operational at the time of Hurricane Maria on September 18th. And I'll always remember that date because it was my birthday. And so we want to ensure that you were in business before. Many people will come and say, oh, my business got damaged. And we will ask for evidence that you were in business before. And that we will verify. Again, the certificate of registration will enable us to verify that you were in business before. The banking information that you will be giving to us will enable us to verify that you were in business before. Many people don't separate their banking business. And so these are some of the things that we have been saying to our micro and small businesses. And we are very happy for this emergency grant because it's giving us an opportunity to reinforce and to get our micro and small business to do some of the things that you were asking them to do. And now they need to do it so that they can benefit from this emergency grant. Okay, special attention will be given to gender, disability, and regional representation. So we have to ensure that the whole of Dominica benefits from this program. And it must just not only be ladies. We have to make sure men benefit. And we have to, so even people who are differently abled or disabled must benefit as well. So we have to go out and ensure that the beneficiaries are far and wide so that when we are audited, and the questions are raised, we'll be able to answer sufficiently that we implemented the program successfully. And we are calling on our micro and small businesses to enable us to do so successfully. And of course, once you receive the grant, the requirement is that you have to sign a letter that you receive the money, and you also have to sign a contract that you are going to stick to the commitment of utilizing the fund for what you have indicated on the application form. All right, so the required documentation, let me repeat again. You will come in, you'll be able to fill an application form. You must submit a copy of an identification. You must submit your certificate of business registration or submission of proof of business banking account, and of course, copy of your Dominica Social Security. And we want to say to our micro and small businesses, do not be afraid of requirements. It's necessary for us to do things proper. And we are available to ensure that all who are able to benefit from the fund will benefit, and we will provide the support necessary. I just want to allow everyone to have an expose on the application form. So I'm going to call on Mr. Stevenson to walk through the form so everybody can understand. So if there are any difficulties, that they will be able to clarify in the question and answer session.
Thank you, P.S. Thomas. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, Honorable Minister for Commerce, Honorable Rosalind Paul. The application process, do we have one we could highlight it on the screen? Okay. All right. I have mine, but it would have been nice if it would have been highlighted on the screen. Okay. Because that's it. Maybe the camera could show. We're on page 1. It's possible to split the screen, and whilst we're speaking, persons would visualize. Okay, it would have to be set up before. Okay, all right. Okay. We'll just walk through it. But before we walk through it, though, I'd just like to thank the Ministry of Commerce and the World Bank for the efforts at institutional strengthening, that enabled us to be able to be in your presence this morning, so that persons would be able to receive the necessary benefits that they've been looking forward to for some time. The application form has a number of questions and requirements that persons must fulfill. Of course, your title, your name and surname, your date of birth, and in the filling out of the application form, you put the month first, the day that you were born, and the year. Your nationality. There are 3 options for ID type and number. Dominica social security number, passport number, or your driver's license. Any one of them would suffice. Your street address, the city or the community that you reside. Your parish is very important because when we'll be assessing how diverse the applications came from the various communities, the parish will also be able to give us the opportunity to be able to get some statistics and see the areas that were driven with more entrepreneurs, those that probably decided they didn't want to go into that business or want to apply. Your telephone number, we have 4 options, 1 landline and 3 mobile numbers that you could put in. Your banking information is also important, where the name of the bank, not only does you put the National Bank or the Royal Bank, but you also indicate the name of your credit union. But also very important is the account number. I repeat that, the account number. Please, not your ATM debit card number. I've been noticing that in recent times where persons put in their debit card number. Your debit card number is not necessarily your account number. So if the check has to be deposited to your account, we would need the account number. The business ownership structure. Is it a sole trader? If you are the only person that own that business, that would be an example of a sole trader. Is it a partnership where you and someone else own that business? Or is it a company where you have actually gone and incorporated that business? Or is it a cooperative? For example, the Bay Oil Cooperative, the Newtown Fisheries Cooperative, or the Home Industries Cooperative, by way of examples. The business status, we would want to know, is it a new business or an existing business? And the date the business was opened, the month, the day, the year. And of course, the type of enterprise. Is it a micro enterprise, a small or a medium enterprise? And that question would refer to the number of persons employed. Between 1 to 5 employees would be classified as a micro enterprise. 6 to 20 employees would be classified as a small business enterprise. And 21 employees and above would be classified as a medium enterprise. Your tax number, and we'd like persons to get into the habit of that. Persons usually tend to have a phobia or want to shy away. Your personal income tax number or your business tax number. Those are important, okay? And is your business registered with the Company and Intellectual Property Office? You must have that small business or that micro business registered with the Companies and Intellectual Property Office. It's absolutely important. And why that is important? The government of Dominica, through the Ministry of Commerce, we are currently more than 80% at an advanced stage with our small business policy, and pretty much the same standard with our small business legislation. So in future disasters, God forbid, a lot of the things that we're doing now, our institution would have been strengthened to such an extent that a number of things would then be automatic. You are a registered business, you're incorporated, you have your tax account number, the regime of incentives that would be detailed in the small business policy as well as the small business legislation, that would speed up the process substantially to get persons to get back on their feet a lot faster. So today we are not only building back better physical structures, but we are strengthening our institutions to ensure that micro, small, and even medium enterprises can bounce back way a lot faster and prosper. Your business category, you would tick whether you're retail trade and service, a food and beverage, manufacturing and agro-processing, or you're in construction. Now, is your business insured? This is a measurement of one's level of, say, the ability to have grown the business over the years. and those that have just started, they're just budding businesses, and those that we're targeting, the 1,500, is really the budding business that have just started and not yet been insured. So if you're a taxi or bus operator, you would not be able to apply and receive any benefits under this program because your vehicle or the bus would have been insured. So you'd have to seek a claim for your insurance company to repair your bus in that case, or your taxi. There are other questions that we're looking at. Did you complete the survey of damage and losses in commercial and the manufacturing organization? You must answer yes on this for this question, and you must have completed this form. If I may hold it up. It's the damage and loss assessment that we did almost 2-3 weeks thereafter the hurricane with the UNDP personnel. Okay, and that detailed, it's a 4-page form. It detailed for persons what it is that happened to their business. There were a number of questions. Did you suffer damage? If yes, what way the business was affected? Was it damage to premises, damage to equipment / machinery, damage to finished products, shortage of labor, shortage or lack of electricity, lack of water, lack of raw materials, productivity decline, stoppage of operations, damage decline for products, and others that you would require to specify. So you would have had to complete that form. Okay? This is also included in the ministry / World Bank's database because it's going to be audited. So what it is that was said here, you're going to have to be consistent when you now use the application form. So if, for example, if you said you sustained $10,000 worth of loss, you cannot now come and say you suffered $100,000 worth of loss. You would have to, of course, if it was an estimate at the time or a rough calculation, you would have to produce the evidence so that it could substantiate your declaration. Indicates, as we just spoke here, of the damage sustained. I highlighted it here. And there's another question. Highlight the losses suffered and give estimates. The losses suffered. What was your level of sales or your average revenue before the hurricane? What level of sales you have now, if any, post the hurricane? So if you don't have anything right now after Hurricane Maria, it means in terms of revenue sales, right? It means you would have suffered 100% loss of business. You would have had the business damaged, yes. So there's a distinction between the damage, the equipment broken and flooded and that sort of thing, and the losses. Because some people could have the equipment been damaged, but they would have had probably stock and possibly could have sold that finished goods. Okay? But if you have lost everything in terms of not able to sell anything, then the calculations would be able to show that you suffered 100% loss. So we're asking persons to highlight that for us. And of course, there's another question. How soon will you restart your business if given financial assistance? Would it be within 1 week, 1 month, 2 months? I hope nobody says, I don't know. How was your business previously financed? Were you a young individual that got grants from the, not a grant, but a loan guarantee from the Dominica Youth Business Trust? Did you receive a grant previously from the government of Dominica? Or did you get a loan from your credit union or the National Development Foundation or even the Aid Bank? And then, of course, there's the other option of highlighting other, maybe for family, for friends, accumulated savings. We would want you to highlight that for us. And seeing that we don't have the skin splitted, the funding requirements, you would list for us and itemize the equipment and whatever it is that you need to restart the business in the very short term. The most critical things and the costs associated with that. So we'd expect you to pull that out there for us with the costing. At the back of the application, towards the last page, there's a declaration that you must sign, and we ask persons to take this very seriously. It states there when you sign that you declare that the information provided in this application is factual and that the funds provided to yourself will be used exclusively for restoring productive assets damaged by Hurricane Maria. You will agree to keep all receipts for assets acquired and make them available upon request. This is a very serious, this is a binding agreement between yourselves and the ministry that the World Bank would be auditing and visiting. Then they would request of you your registered business name. So what name is it that you have for your business? Your address for your business, the average monthly income, the number of employees, and the average monthly sales. Sort of a cross-examination, isn't it? From some of the questions you were asking a little earlier. Bear that in mind. And then for office use, we've got the documentation submitted with application. We'll say yes, no. There are other notes that will be there, and whether the application is recommended. And then the dates, post-financing, field visits. So after you have received the assistance, there's going to be persons from the Ministry of Commerce and more than likely persons from the World Bank when they would come in for us. We'll first go to do the verification that yes, the business is there. Then the World Bank people more than likely will come at some point to do their monitoring and evaluation, as well as the economic impact assessments. Number of businesses that have started, persons that are now employed, persons that are now able to sell raw materials, or even some persons getting back into exporting. So for example, economic impact would be for the seamstresses, the number of school children that now have uniforms available for purchase. Okay, the number of seamstresses that have uniforms, school uniforms, white blouses, khaki pants, and the other uniforms that are out there. Those are the persons that have been able to get back on their feet to make those uniforms. So some of those, that will be an example of the economic impact. These people are back at work, and then there is that integration of activities, raw materials are being supplied, being sourced, and those sort of things are happening. Now, in the approval process, well, before I speak about the approval process, there was something that I just need to make mention of on the eligibility criteria. Special attention, as PS indicated, will be given to gender, disability, and regional representation, including ensuring that small and micro enterprises owners from the Kalinago territory are aware of the program. So persons from the Kalinago territory must form part in the application. Okay, it was just I suspect, and there's a slight omission in disseminating the information a little earlier. So persons from the Kalinago territory, you are not left out, you are included, and the information will be sent to your village council, and our staff will be there at the village council assisting persons in ensuring they meet the requirements and to assist in the filling out of these forms. Because based on what I just highlighted to persons in the application form, there are some critical questions that are there, and in the analysis. Now that application form, as I'm highlighting in there, will form part of the database for the World Bank, and that the inputting of the data is going to be going on a continuous basis. And then when you have your reports that you extract from the database, you would see the parish, the number of persons that are applying, you would see the gender, male, female. You would also get the idea that we have the date of birth. You would have the age range from the youngest person to the oldest person that's applying to want to get back into business. You would have an appreciation of that. You would know the number of persons that have already a DSS ID, those with a driver's license, those with a passport. I hope we don't get anybody without any one of those, because this is a critical requirement, and that will show us where the gaps are. Okay, as likewise the parish, the number of persons with a cell phone, as well as we have a requirement for email address, the number of persons with email addresses and whatever gaps there are, so that at some point, even us at the Ministry of Commerce could assist persons. If you have a cell phone, but you don't have an email address, that would probably be one of our technical assistants where you would assist persons in developing or creating a Gmail account for themselves. The ownership structure, it will give us an appreciation of the number of persons that are sole traders, the number of persons that are in partnership, the number of persons that have gone ahead and incorporated their business to form companies, as well as the number of persons or the number of businesses that are with the forms of cooperatives. We would see the number of existing businesses that have applied, the number of new business, and new business is really businesses, in our judgment here, under 1 year. But you would have had to be in operation during Hurricane Maria, or just before Hurricane Maria. And of course, the date of the business was opened. From that information, we would get to know the youngest business as well as the oldest business. And if you're a business that is over 10 years and you're still a micro business, it gives us now the opportunity, from that information to start addressing those persons that we need to get them to step up, scale up their operation, at least become a small business and start. And especially if you're not into any form of export or you have challenges with labeling and packaging and that sort of thing, it gives us that clear insight as to the number of these people, okay? Because that World Bank program, once we implement it successfully, it gives us an opportunity at the ministry to apply to the World Bank again based on the technical assistance from the gaps, that particular application and the database, the information it would give us to say, well, we need some information, we need some technical assistance to help with packaging, to help with labeling, to help with marketing, okay? Your tax number, it's very, very important. The personal and the business, it gives us an opportunity as to the number of people if their personal income tax numbers, the number if their business income tax numbers. Why? Your activities will then be captured by the Central Statistics Office so that the inclusion in your GDP, okay, all the goods and services that will be produced in 1 year in the country can be captured. Likewise, for the DSS, it will help us to know for sure, okay, get a better appreciation of the number of persons that are employed in business. Now is this a guesstimate that statistics have to make, because the micro and small business sector is generally classified as an informal sector. But because of the institutional strengthening that we're receiving from the World Bank is saying to us that, listen guys, you actually have a gold mine with all these people, because it was discovered we have over 10,000 micro, small businesses on island. Many of those businesses operate from home. But imagine if you're in the business, the service business, you have your computer, you have a video conference software facility, you can generate income. But if you're not captured in there, persons might think, well, you are unemployed. Okay? So it gives us, and then the database will give us the number of persons in retail, trade and services, food and beverage, and that sort of thing. Okay, so that is the kind of breakdown, the feedback. So once you are able to give us that information in the detailed way that it is requested of you, that information not only helps you to get the funding that the PS talked about, but it gives us the additional work that we must do to strengthen based on the gaps we would have identified from that information. Thank you much.
So you've heard of the application process and the requirements that you would have to comply with. As was said, it's not with the intention to bar anybody, but we at the ministry, we are there to encourage you. So you still have the opportunity to register your business, and as you've heard, it costs $90 just to register, and it takes a short process, as little as 1 day to get registered. So it's not with the intention to bar, but it's with the intention to strengthen the work that we do in partnership with our clientele. And further, what we need to also indicate is that there will be a review committee which will assess the applications and recovery plans to ensure the applicants meet the requirements that you just heard of. So there will be a 3-man committee, one person, the executive director who just spoke to you will be on that committee, a DYBT representative, manager, and a representative from the Ministry of Finance. It will just to ensure that all of the requirements are met. And also, if you feel that you are eligible and did not succeed, you have an opportunity to record that grievance. And there's a form for that as well. But there will be recommendation for those who are ineligible for consideration on the possibly our normal grant program and other areas of support. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. I have one question, GIS News. In the case of a small business which was affected by the storm but is operating right now to the best of their abilities, do they still have to enter the area where it says how soon will your businesses restart, or what approach is being taken to those businesses which were affected but are still operating to the best of their ability?
The important thing is once they meet the requirement. So if they will then be able to say, yes, I'm in business, but then they would indicate what they would require the funds for. So it's the requirement that is fundamental there. You've suffered loss before Maria, you're applying for the grant, the emergency grant, and you meet the requirement. That is the important thing. Okay? And to re-emphasize, there will be a review committee doing the selection of beneficiaries for that fund. And if you feel you were not successful, as the minister said, there's a process you can go through the Ministry of Commerce. We give you the grievance form, you fill it out, and the review committee will say, but what was your grievance? And then we'll be able to answer you on the matter. The important thing is the requirements. And the requirements are articulated at the back of the forms. And as we said, they're available also at the Ministry of Commerce. I must also say that the forms are numbered. And because we are seeking to target 1,500, they are numbered, and we do not require persons to photocopy them, because they are numbered. That's how we have to maintain the targeting of what we are seeking to achieve.
From the Chronicle newspaper, is there a projected date as to when the funds will be given to the beneficiaries?
We are okay. Our publication will be from now to the 24th of January. So we are targeting between more early February, late week in January or early February. We will do our utmost to ensure that remember it's an emergency grant, and the program have a set time for implementation. According to the programming, we're supposed to implement that program for 2 months between now and February. So it means that persons need to receive those funds as quickly as possible.
Just a follow-up question. And Mrs. Thomas, how much is the World Bank grant? How much is it is? I do think that was mentioned.
The total is 3 million US. The exchange rate bringing us to 8.064 million. And we are targeting 1,500 persons. Everyone receives the same amount, 5,376.
Right. I know you've made a reference and you've spoken a lot about the application form. Are there any other safeguards in place to ensure that these monies go to the people who really need them?
Based on all the requirements we articulated, the team of the World Bank and ourselves, we sat carefully and looked at the safeguards as well, and that is why we were careful to careful to articulate the requirements, and as I said, even the application process, we ensure they are numbered so that there is no duplication. We will go to the village council ourselves and provide the guidance so that people, you only given the form to fill in the application when we have seen all your requirements. So we are going to be we are going to do our utmost to be meticulous about this matter. Because I think if we implement this program well, we are in the international world that we are one of the countries who have implemented an emergency grant successfully. And I have spoken to all my staff that this is our goal and this is what we're going after. And I think we're all singing from the same sheet, even the Honorable Minister and the government of Dominica is fully seized with all the information that we have presented to you here this morning.
Finally, reference was made to a small business policy and legislation. I've heard that mentioned for the last few years. What is the hold-up and how important is legislation now for the small business sector?
Normally, policy matters, I would prefer the minister answer, but unless if she authorizes me to, then I will. Okay? All right. The issue is that we were receiving support from the OAS we started off with our own contractual service to a local Dominican to help us do the small business policy. Unfortunately, the consultant had many setbacks, and we were not able to achieve that goal in 2016. We were able then, because the OAS is working with us on small business development centers, that is, ensuring that we have advisory services and support to our MSME sector. They are working with us in that, and that has been going reasonably okay. There are a few hitches we have to continue to work on. And they came in and helped us, and they started. Actually, they sent us a draft, which we are looking at, and we've been meeting weekly via video conferencing with that new consultant who's working with us. Our goal is that we'll finish it by the second half of this, at least we'll finish it in this financial year. That is our goal. And that is the process I can speak to now. It's very important for us to have the policies in place. As Mr. Stevenson said, if government has articulated clear policy statements, it means that when you are faced with situations, the policy is already there, and as a technocrat, you can proceed to implementation. And then also the sector must be aware what policy guidelines that they are operating within. More so, a policy only becomes real when you have legislation to back it up, because a policy is just statements in a document. And what really gives it enforcement and teeth is the legislation. So it is very important for both to happen simultaneously, and that is what we're working feverishly at. And as I said, our goal is to complete by the end of this financial year. We are working with the consultant, and we must say that the OAS has been very, very supportive with us in that regard. We commend that we have a very good friend in the OAS by Miss Penko, Reno Penko. She's a Caribbean technocrat working at the OAS, and they have been giving us tremendous support in that regard. And of course, the minister, it's a team of us in the ministry, the Honorable Minister, Mr. Stevenson, and myself, and then we have the support from DYBT, Dr. Douglas. Is a team of us sitting as we dialogue with the consultant. We bring in our other partners like the manufacturing sector, the NDFD, the Aid Bank, and we bring them on board as we are moving along with the drafting and the refining of the language to go in the policy. So these are things that are happening behind the scenes. So we are working.
Yeah, my final question, I said it a while ago. Before Hurricane Maria, the minister was on radio indicating that the financial assistance to the small businesses in Dominica was substantial. In other words, the ministry had spent a lot of money towards small business development. Can you tell us now how much was that at the time? That was before the hurricane. How much had you spent?
Indicate the last conference we had. We spent about 13 million. 7 plus million was through decentralized support to village councils, 16 village councils. And the rest was through our normal small business grant program where people came into the ministry and received the checks. But interestingly, based on the survey days that we've been doing, many of these micro and small businesses suffered loss. So it's like we have to start all over again. So it's tremendous for us. It was a bit heartbreaking for me when I began to consider all the losses and all the input and the work we had done before Maria. But we have no control of what the Lord does. And so therefore we just have to see it as an opportunity for us to do things better and put our boots on and continue working.
So, the Ministry of Commerce, Enterprise and Small Business Development will continue working. It seems, if nothing else, we can be assured of that moving into 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, I said this before. This is a very good day for businesses in Dominica. The information that has been provided by the Ministry of Commerce, Enterprise and Small Business Development. Just about $8.6 million to be dispersed in amounts of $5,376. Do not be intimidated. Go to the ministry and fill the forms. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you to the minister responsible, Honorable Rosalind Paul, the Minister for Commerce, Enterprise and Small Business Development, the Member of Parliament for the Paybush constituency, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Commerce, Enterprise and Small Business Development, Mrs. Esther Thomas, and the Executive Director within that ministry, Alexander Stevenson. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, always great to see you. Thank you for your partnership. One and all, have a great day. Thank you very much.